Hey guys, it's Jonathan Bocher. Today we're going to look at 7 different ways you can use octaves in your guitar solos. So the first few ways of using octaves in your solos really just boil down to different patterns that you can use, okay? So the first one, which you may be familiar with from other lessons that I've done, it's a very common one, okay? I use this all the time when I'm playing the bass. Okay, so you take your root note, in this case, A on the 5th fret, 6th string, go down 2 strings, to the 4th string, up 2 frets. Okay, so that gets us to the 4th string, 7th fret. And we find another A, that's the octave. Okay, this shape, down 2 strings, up 2 frets. Hold it intact, use it anywhere on the fretboard, move it around, it's going to work. With the exception of pattern number 2, which involves whenever we cross the B string, the 2nd string, okay? So the pattern I just showed you works well if you're, let's say the lowest note in that pattern is your root note, okay? So we're going to say it's rooted off of the 5th or the 6th strings. That works great. What if you come up to the 4th string? Apply the same pattern. We got a problem here. That's pretty dissonant, right? Oh, that feels much better. So we can find that if we adjust the same pattern I just showed you by adding 1 fret or 1 semitone to it on the higher note, we get an octave again. The reason for that is that all 6 strings of the guitar are tuned in fourths, with the exception of that 2nd string, which is tuned to a major 3rd. We've got G here on the 3rd string and B on the 2nd string. That's a major 3rd interval, right? And then we go from B back to E, which is a 4th again. So anyhow, that means that if we're touching or crossing that B string with our higher note, we need to adjust our pattern in the way that I just showed you. So if we start up here and work down through the strings, we got to adjust. And that sounds pretty cool, right? So that's 2 different patterns. One more pattern for you that's quite handy, and that's working off the 1st string and the 4th string. Now this same pattern would work off the 2nd string and the 5th string too. Okay? 4th string, there's an A again, right? We just found that with our first pattern. Now from here we're going to go up to the A on the 1st string. Of course we know that's there because 1st string and 6th string are identical, right? So there's another pattern for you. Bonus one if you want it, but it's not as convenient to use in a solo. But this one is. And so all it is you're going down 2 frets in this case. So from 7th fret to the 5th fret, and then we're going all the way up 4 strings, right? Or 3 strings. Okay. 4th string, 7th fret. 1st string, 5th fret. One way to think about this is coming out of your bar chord. I'll just use an A minor chord. It's the same A major because that note there is kind of irrelevant here. But we've got our root note here, here, and here. Okay, 3 root notes in that chord. A major, A minor, it's the same difference. Okay, so if you're looking for a way to move this around your fretboard to a relevant part of your chord progression, that's one way of kind of anchoring it in your mind, all right? So if you got a chord progression in A minor, for instance, and then it goes to an E, just move up here to where you would play an E minor, or your E, right? Whatever chord, whatever E chord you wanted. So that's the 5, 4, 1, right? Little bonus for you. if you wanted to use this pattern in your rhythm, bar the first and second strings. Okay? All that's doing is that's adding a fifth to your root note. So we've got a root note is A, there's another A, and now we're adding an E. It's effectively a kind of weird power chord, right? Which is just the 1 and the 5. A little bonus for you. Okay, that gives us, what, 3 patterns? You can apply that pattern that I just showed you too, by the way, to the 5th and the 2nd strings. And if you go to the 6th string, it becomes less convenient to use and you have to adjust it again. You got to go down 1 more fret. So I didn't include that as part of the numberings, but... Okay, next 3 ways are ways to play those patterns, okay? So we can play, I've been doing a lot of playing them at exactly the same time as a double stop. To do that, I'm using my pick and a finger, playing it at exactly the same time. That's a very common kind of jazzy sound, right? You're just striking the notes at exactly the same time. You could also play them sequentially, like an arpeggio. Okay. And or you could strum them. Now, when you're doing this, it gets a little bit trickier. You got to make sure that you're muting that middle string with, ideally, your index finger. You're going to have a bit of a dead sound there, but it shouldn't ring out too much, right? So that's going to take some practice. Okay, I think that brings us to 6th, 7th, and very important way is to actually think about your octaves in terms of ways to position your solo, okay? So I'm going to work out of this scale. I like to call that the ultimate solo scale there because you get to cover 8 frets in a single run pattern, which is really cool. But if we look at that, we've got a D here. This is also an A minor. We've got a D there. Apply our octave pattern, the first one. There's another one. Apply the second octave pattern because we're crossing the B string. And we find another D up here, right? So that gives us 3 octaves. I can't do, oh, I could do 3 that way because I'm holding my pick. 3 octaves in a single pattern, right? So what we can do is pick a riff, whatever you want your riff to be, and move it around to all the different octaves, right? And see what that sounds like. Use those root notes as anchor points in your solo. Where else do we have that same root note on the fretboard? Ooh. Up here in our root 5 minor scale. There it is again, right? And if you want, you can go up and apply the octave. Here's our A root note, right? Octave of that in a single line, single string is 12 frets up, of course, right? And there we go. Got to use the highest note on my guitar today. So you can see how using an octave or your root note and as a kind of an anchor point for a riff immediately gets you all over the fretboard. Now you got to know some scale patterns, but this is a great way of applying that scale pattern knowledge and jumping around your fretboard if you want to sound like you're not playing the scale so much, right? And when you're playing on those octaves, it just emerges very well with itself. It sounds musical, is what I'm trying to say. So, anyways, I'm just going to throw in a jam track, give you a quick demonstration of some of that stuff, and then we'll be out of here. Let's check it out. So there's a few different ways that you can apply octaves to your solos. I didn't really get into the scale patterns that I was using in here. I kind of assumed that you had some level of scale knowledge already. If you don't, check out my guitar scale patterns course. It's going to really help you understand the entire fretboard and how to use it coherently and cohesively all together, right? So you can jump around wherever you need to. All the scales actually make sense once you figure it out, okay? So check that out, guitar scale patterns at PlayGuitar.com. And of course, use these octaves to really, to be a good exercise for figuring out more about your fretboard, okay? We'll see you again next time. Have yourself a great day.